Hey everybody, Darren from the White Hatter, and welcome to today's Thinkable Thursday. Let's get after it. Hey everybody, again, Darren from the White Hatter, and welcome to today's Thinkable Thursday. Quite excited, as you're going to see here in a little bit. You know, we have now presented to over 500,000 teens from across Canada and the United States, and tens of thousands of parents. And one of the common questions that we get from parents and even teens is, this thing called these video game things, right? Like we're hearing that they can become addictive and all this kind of stuff. And, what's the true story about it? So, as an individual who comes from law enforcement, I believe in evidence because in order to get a conviction, I need evidence in court. So we're very much evidence-based in our presentations. And, one of the things last year, we interviewed a really cool expert from the United States by the name of Dr. Patrick Markey. And he wrote this really cool book called Moral Combat. And for parents, this would be a really good book. A little dated, but still really, really good book to kind of give you some insight into some of the facts and not necessarily the fear associated with what's going on in this area. And after that interview, he said, "Hey, Darren, do you know about this person by the name of Dr. Rachel Kowert?" And I said, "No. Should I be?" And he said, "Yeah, you should." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "She's from Canada." I said, "What? She's Canadian, eh?" "Yes, she's Canadian. And her full-time job is video games." I mean, how cool is that? But she's a subject matter expert in the area. In fact, she has a YouTube channel. I'm going to pull it up here. Here it is. It's Zeitgeist. And I'm sure she would love it if you were all to go over there and subscribe to her channel. Like, it is just unbelievable. And so when I heard about her, I went to her YouTube channel, started watching her YouTube videos. And what I love about Dr. Kowert is her ability to take the dryness of academia and turn it into a product that we mere mortals, known as parents, who don't come from an academic background, can understand. And she does it in a way that is very personable. It's not dry. It's just amazing what she does and how she does it. And to be quite honest with you, she became my Sarah Connor when it comes to online gaming issues. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, there's a lot of dis and misinformation out there. It's called juvenile moral panic. We're going to drill down deeper on that with Dr. Kowert. And when that happens, she is good to go. Let's take on some of this. So that's why, Sarah Connor in the Terminator, when it went after Terminator, she kind of does the same thing when it comes to people who are using this thing called juvenile moral panic on issues such as, gaming addiction. These are all things that we're going to be talking about in today's presentation. So why don't we pull her into screen? There she is. Good afternoon, Dr. Kowert. You are on the kind of central coast of Canada. So you're in Ontario. I'm here on the west coast. So you're about 3 hours ahead of me. Dr. Kowert, maybe share with everybody who you are. I mean, I gave a little bit of an introduction about you, but maybe share with everybody who you are.
I'm Sarah Connor. No, I am Dr. Rachel Kowert. I am a research psychologist. I am also the research director of Take This, which is the first mental health nonprofit to form serving the gaming industry and the gaming community specifically. And cool. I'm also a science content creator, as you mentioned, on YouTube, Zeitgeist. I have been studying games and gamers for more than 10 years with a specific focus on the way that games impact us physically, socially, and psychologically.
And you're Canadian, eh? That's what I love, right? Is that you're Canadian. So I am so honored and pleased that you accepted our invitation because this is a big deal to a lot of parents, right? So why don't we get into the questions right away? So the first question I have for you is, what is juvenile and moral panic, and how has it been applied to youth throughout the ages, and how does this apply to youth and online gaming? I mean, let's hear your thoughts on this.
Moral panic, to put it easily, it's a simple solution to a complex problem. So we see moral panics about technologies, and we've seen them all throughout history. Comic books, Dungeons and Dragons, rock and roll, television, radio. I mean, we've seen it across the board. And now we see it when it comes to gaming. But what's a little unique to gaming is that it's the longest lasting moral panic, certainly of my lifetime. For the last 50 years, we've been talking about this panic around games. And as I said in the beginning, it's a simple solution to a complex problem. If there's violence in society, it must be the games. If there's obesity in society, it must be the games. That's really the moral panic at work.
Games or cell phones too, right? Like it has to. We have to be able to blame it on the iPhone somehow, right?
For sure.
And it's funny you say that, because I remember when Dungeons and Dragons first came out, the board game, and how it was in the media that anybody who plays it's going to turn us all into Satan worshipers. And why does that happen? I mean, you study this field. Why is moral panic being with us in Juvenoia for such a long time?
Because it's easier to blame something that seems simple than it is to look into the societal factors that contribute to any particular problem. So for instance, violent crime. Video games have been the scapegoat for violent crime for a very, very long time now. And it's easier to say they're playing games that from the outside looking in, they look violent, there are weapons and people are killing other people on the screen. So it must be that, and it certainly can't be structural inequalities within society or peer deviance or parental relationships or personality factors. That's all very complicated and takes too much effort to think about. So let's just say it's the games. And despite the fact that research doesn't support that, humans are lazy thinkers. We're cognitive misers, my teacher used to say. So the connection is just very strong and it just sticks.
Cognitive Meisners. I got to write that one down. I kind of like that one. We're gonna dive deeper into the violence aspect a little bit later. But my second question I have for you is, what is the difference between gaming when I was a teen, like I used to play Asteroids and Tanks and Donkey Kong, and online games of today? Like, what's the difference between the two?
I would say there's two big differences that really kind of come up in these moral panic conversations. The first is the change in graphics. Things are far more realistic looking now than they were back then. I mean, Death Race, which came out in 1978, which was really the start of the moral panic around games and violence and violent crime, was just like a 2-square car and a 1-circle person, and you would run over them, and that was hysteria. And you look now and things are very realistic. You can play battlefield games that look like you're right there, photorealistic. So that's the first one. The second one is actually, you noted it in the question, online games. Everything is very, very connected on the internet now, and even single player games are connected on the internet through like achievement systems and chat rooms and things through your console. So those are probably the two big.
Yeah, and the other thing I see too with today's, I like to call it the on-life world. Too many adults still see a difference between the online world and the offline world. And really, it's one world, especially to youth today. And what I find about online gaming in today's on-life world, it's all about community, right? It really is. I mean, just go to Twitch and it's just amazing to see how it has created, when I was younger playing video games, it was me against the machine, right? Like playing Asteroids or something like that. But today it's more about community. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and the community to me is the best part of the gaming communities, the gaming world that we have today. I mean, as a female, as a non-male player of video games back in the early 90s, there weren't too many people like me who I saw at the arcades playing games. So as you mentioned, we have Twitch, which is a platform where you can watch other people play games and gather as a community around kind of a gaming personality. But then there's also Discord, right? Third-party chat applications that people who have a shared fandom, if you all like playing Grand Theft Auto or whatever it might be, you can join a chat room and immediately be connected with thousands of other people who share the same passion as you. So communities have definitely traversed, geographical location, which is what we were limited to when we were younger.
And the reality is, I mean, Dr. Markey said this in a tweet last year, I think gaming got kids through COVID. Right? Like if I'm reflective,
for sure.
if I'm being reflective of what it was like when I was a teen many years ago, being a boomer that I am, I could only imagine how emotionally, psychologically, and socially destroyed it would be, because we didn't have that ability compared to today and what happened with online gaming during COVID. What have you seen? Any research out there about how gaming has really, what have you seen during COVID?
Yeah, I wrote a Medium article very early on in COVID called "Have Games Been the Saving Grace of COVID-19?" because I was like, this is definitely going to be something. And
Yeah.
now, a year in, research has caught up, and there's been several research studies looking at gaming as a way to reduce sense of loneliness, specifically through Twitch,
Yeah.
as fostering a sense of community. It was the last place where you could have social interactive play with your friends. I mean, I know a lot of the children of my friends were playing a lot of Minecraft over COVID because
Mhm.
they couldn't play hockey anymore. They couldn't play basketball anymore. Like that's the only kind of fun, interactive social space they had left. So absolutely, you're spot on. I think that games have played a wonderful role during this terrible year that we've had.
Yeah. Next question I have for you, Doc, is can gaming cause mental wellness challenges? And if they can, what are those challenges? And really, this is a two-part question. The second question I have is, can gaming help those with mental wellness challenges? And the reason I ask that is, I've been seeing some really good research coming out how individuals who are experiencing mental health challenges where they were very isolated through gaming have created this community. So it's actually been positive. But, we love to take a balanced approach. Surely there must be some negatives associated with gaming that parents need to be aware of, but also the positive. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, let's go broad. Taking a really as broad stroke as you can. Generally speaking, the effects of games on our mental well-being are more positive than negative, and at the very least neutral.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there can be some negative outcomes. Some people use games in ways that are maladaptive, no question. Some people use games in ways then cause problems in other areas of their life. But generally speaking, in broad strokes, the effects are more positive. Reduction in loneliness, sense of community, stress relief, releasing of endorphins because games are inherently playful and we all need playful activities, not just children. It's very important for adults as well. So in terms of its effects on mental wellness, it is more positive than negative, but there are, of course, exceptions. I don't want to say there's not.
What are some of those exceptions? Like let's be open and honest. Like what can they be?
Yes. For somebody who's using games in a way that has become a maladaptive coping strategy. So let's say, for instance, someone is playing a lot of games because they're feeling lonely, but instead of fostering a sense of community, perhaps it's making them more isolated in other areas of their life. Or perhaps they're playing to the extent in which they're not fulfilling other responsibilities in their life anymore. They could be lying about the time that they're spending playing games, not showing up to work, not going to school, those sorts of things. Those are all problems. And that's not to say that games are the cause of the problems, because there's no evidence to suggest that it's the games, but it's the games as a coping strategy that has then become problematic for that particular individual.
And another thing that I've identified through some of the research that's coming out over the past year and a half are loot boxes in some of these games and how sometimes maybe loot boxes can become problematic. Can you maybe explain to our audience, who's primarily parents, what are loot boxes and why can they become problematic if we're not careful?
Loot boxes are really fun things that your children want to buy in games. I can tell you that. Loot boxes they're basically like the surprise egg of video games, the sealed baseball card pack of video games.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're in, right?
Yeah.
I love baseball cards.
Yeah.
They are boxes that are a surprise, and there could be anything in them. It could be a cosmetic item like a new hairstyle for your player's character, or it could be as something that strategically helps you in the game. So like a better weapon or a better boost for your stats for your player. Now, this can be a problem because loot boxes, just like lottery tickets and sealed baseball packs, are designed that you want more because you want to get the cool thing that you know is in one of these boxes. So the advice I usually give to parents is make sure that your children are limited in their ability to spend money through a console or through their computer, because they pop and make noise. Their friends are buying them. It's thrilling and exciting to see what you're going to get. And your brain has not fully developed, your cognitive functioning is not fully developed to your mid-20s, right? And even then, scratch off lottery tickets are still enticing. So it's really difficult to tell a kid, don't get these because they are They are inherently desirable. And, you know, we could talk about the psychology behind them. You know, one is a winner and then three are losers and another one's a winner, and that keeps you wanting to buy more.
Right.
So limit the spending is the best advice I can give for that.
And you know what? We talk about on the variety of different platforms out there what parents can do to put proper parental protections in place, because you've probably heard just as much as we have. I actually helped a couple of families where they're unknown to them, they were using their Apple account with their credit card, not knowing they didn't put proper restrictions. Right. And then all of a sudden the poor parents have got bills of $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, right? So I think that's really important. And the other comment I want to make too is, you know, you're right. I mean, you're the psychologist, but I read this all the time, is that our teens' brains are not fully developed into the early 20s. But having said that, I know a lot of adults who've got fully developed brains are doing way more dumb things online than the kids are. Like a lot of, you know what I mean? So it's kind of funny that way. But yeah, you know, loot boxes, it's interesting to see where the research is going on that. And I really appreciate your comment. So next question I have for you is, you know, parents are concerned that violent video games cause violence. Your thoughts on this belief? We kind of touched upon this a little bit earlier, right? Like, and I want to share something with you. When I was in law enforcement for 30 years, I remember I was going to this one conference where there was a speaker. I'm not going to mention who it was. He was in the military. He wrote a book, and he was talking about the fact that, you know, these violent video games are much like these ability that they're using in the military simulations, and so these violent video games are actually teaching kids how to kill. So, and this is one of the things that just drives me nuts, because the research, and again, I'll let you talk to the research, just doesn't pan that out. But love to hear your thoughts.
Yes. There is no link linking violent video gameplay to violent crime or violent behaviors. We'll just get that out of the way. If you look at the last 20 years, the consumption of violent video game content has increased exponentially. And if you look at crime among youths who are under 18-year-olds, who are thought to be the most susceptible to media messages and also have the most time to play these kinds of games, has decreased, right? Yes. So we're seeing it like this. So if they were directly related, if nothing else, you'd expect to see them both go up. Now, I understand parents' perspective, because from the outside looking in, you see somebody, you see your child with an avatar with a gun killing people if they're playing Grand Theft Auto or any kind of war or battlefield game. But it's important to know that our brains are really good at differentiating between what's real and what's not. Because even if you think about a Quentin Tarantino movie, which is very violent, and how you feel when you watch those movies, and then imagine that you were in the scenario of those movies, the feelings would be completely different. And the same is true with the experience of video games. It's not, our brains know that we're not actually killing people.
But I love you compounding the message that we give on this topic and that we talk about in our book as well. And the other issue here too is that, you know, Grand Theft Auto, violent, but, you know, maybe it's not appropriate for those under certain ages because of family values and ethics, which is totally different than causational factors associated with violence that you clearly have reported out, that the research shows that there is no correlation there. And that's why ESRB ratings are so important. So just because your 13-year-old wants to play Grand Theft Auto doesn't mean maybe they should because of what is contained in that video game. Comments on that?
Yeah, great point. And I love that you brought up the ESRB. ESRB.org is a fantastic place for resources. They're the people who do the age ratings, but they also have content labels.
Yes.
So if your child really wants an M for mature game and they're 13 years old and you're considering it, you're the parent, you can decide what you want to do, but look at the content labels, and then that'll give you more insight into why it's an M. Oh, it's violence and it's gore and it's suggestive themes. I'm out. You know, I don't want that kind of game in there. So it can give you some more information about what the actual content is in the game.
Yeah, right on target, right? Like, we need to be our kids' best parent and not their best friends all the time, right? Like, because sometimes enabling behavior can become problematic behavior that if we're not careful, can become an issue. So, you know, parents, it's important that we do our research, and ESRB is a really good way to help us understand some of the content of some of these games that the kids want to play. So thank you for that comment. Next question I have for you, Doc, is, you know, what are some of the negative social impacts of gaming, and what are the positives? You know, we hear a lot about the negatives, right? Like, we really do. But let's talk. We kind of mentioned some of the negatives a little bit earlier, but let's drill down on the positives. You know, I shared with you prior to going to air here that we have a young man working with us. He goes by the screen name Citrine Animations on YouTube, and he's like a digital savant. I mean, his ability to do digital, like he's a Lego creator. We're using things like Blender, just amazing. And for those people watching, check out his YouTube channel. You'll be amazed. But what other positives come out of gaming that maybe a lot of parents don't know about, that may kind of shed a light on some of these issues that we're talking about?
Yeah, there's so much unintentional learning is what I like to call it when I talk about it, that happens from playing games. And as you mentioned, like being able to use Blender. Actually, I have a friend whose son is also dips around in Minecraft, and as consequence has learned to use Blender, and it's absolutely breathtaking to watch the way that he can use this software with almost, it seems like no effort. It's amazing. But you can learn new information. I mean, if you think about games like Civilization, right? This game isn't created to be an educational game, but by playing games like Civilization, you learn about the wonders of the world and historical leaders of the world, and you learn things, you learn abilities like resource management and time management and strategic planning. And, you know, the online games, you can learn leadership skills. And research has found that these skills that we learn in games do transfer to other contexts. So leading a group of other individuals in an online game teaches you skills that you can then take to lead groups at work or at school or whatever it might be in a different context.
I mean, a good example, we spoke about this off screen as well, is that, you know, there are now over 200 universities and college universities that now offer full 4-year e-gaming scholarships. So it's just like they have a basketball scholarship or an academic scholarship, you can get an e-gaming scholarship. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Or e-gaming industry
cool.
in Canada is becoming huge from an employment standpoint. So there's job opportunities there as well. Like it simply what are some of the other positives that you've seen coming out of gaming?
Well, I mean, generally speaking, games are really accessible spaces to have fun. And I want to talk about, I mentioned it earlier, because we're talking a lot about children and we are talking to parents, but parents, games are good for you too, because we should have fun. Fun is important throughout the entire lifespan, and we shouldn't be selling ourselves too short.
And just to comment on that, I remember we did a presentation for some parents, and at the end, because one of the things I say is, hey, parents, you know, engage with your kids in online gaming because you'll earn lots of parent cred by doing that, and you may just like it. And at the end of the presentation, I had a father come up to me and say, Darren, you really want me to play Fortnite with my kid? Are you kidding me? Like, I hate it. And I said, just try it and see what happens. So a couple weeks later, I get this email, and this from the father going, hey, Darren, you may not remember me, but I'm the guy that came up to you, and at the end, you know what? I did what you said. I started playing. Oh my God, I love it. In fact, my kid, I'm getting better than my kid now, and my kid doesn't want me to play with him anymore because I'm beating him all the time. It was absolutely amazing. And when I hear parents say it's too hard to learn, well, there was some research that just came out. There was an article. If they can teach a pig, last year they taught a pig how to play a video game. Like, if a pig can learn how to play a video game, we parents can do it as well.
You certainly can.
And
yes.
and I think if parents started to engage with their kids in online gaming, we could start to deal with some of this juvenoia and moral panic that is taking place. Comments on that?
Yeah, 100%. And you know, and for parents who don't want to play, my parents never ever played with me, so I understand there are just some parents who just don't want to do it. You can just look over their shoulder, because honestly, just being present in the room and just saying, hey, what are you playing? Hey, why do you like it? Tell me about it. Who are you playing with? You not only, like you said, can quell the moral panic because you're getting a firsthand look at what they're doing, who they're with, why they like it, but you're also spending quality time with your kids. You're engaging with them with something that they enjoy.
Yeah, and you know what? You may not like hockey, but as a parent, and you may not want to play hockey, but as a parent, what do? We go to the arena and sit in the stands and watch our kids play hockey.
You know?
Right?
We sign our kids up for curling. That's what I know.
You're a curler,
no,
are you?
You sit in the stands and you cheer.
Last question I have for you, Doc. I always end all our presentations or all our interviews with this is, you know, what are some of your final thoughts on this issue, right? Because, you know, I think parents really want to hear from an expert such as yourself about what should they really be concerned about? What should they be thinking about? What they be doing as a parent when it comes to this thing called online gaming? Let's hear some thoughts.
Yes. The big concern for me when I talk to parents, at the end of the day, my biggest concern for my children when they play games is online stranger danger. I think parents do need to know how parental controls work, and they do need to be aware of who their children are playing with. That's going to have a far bigger impact on potential negative outcomes due to gaming than the game itself, at least if we go with evidence-based suggestions. That'd be my number one thing to look out for. The ESRB also has links on their website about parental controls and how to learn more about how to limit people that your child are playing with and that sort of thing. So if you don't know where to start, also, Google and YouTube, there's tutorials everywhere based on platform about how to do that. In terms of advice for parents, my big three is be present, be engaged, and have fun. So be engaged is be aware of what your children are playing. Don't let a 10-year-old play an immature game. If you do allow them to play an immature game, be aware of what the content is. Be present, play with them, or look over their shoulder. And lastly, have fun. If you don't want to play Fortnite, that's fine. There's digital versions of Scrabble. There is Mario Party, which I know I always get on my soapbox and say it ruins relationships because it's an unfair game, but it's very fun. It's very fun for all ages and for families to play together. So there's something for everyone.
Yeah, or Among Us, which is kind of like, I think of it, the Among Us game is like Clue when I was younger playing the board game Clue, right?
Exactly.
Like there's just so many different ways. The other thing I like to share with parents as well is don't try and cut it cold turkey. If a child is gaming, give them a 15-minute warning and then a 10-minute warning, and so that their brain is getting ready to decompress. Or we need to give kids the ability to kind of wean off getting ready to go rather than trying to cut it off cold turkey. I say to parents, how would you feel if you were really enjoying a really good chocolate ice cream cone and somebody just grabbed it and took it away from you, right? So that's kind of what parents are doing when all of a sudden they just turn off the screen without telling the kids or anything like that. So that's another one that I kind of recommend to parents as well.
Yes. 100%. That is a great piece of advice.
I just want to thank you. Stick around because I just want to ask you a couple of questions off screen, but I'm going to do my closing right now. How cool is that? Subject matter expert, Canadian, who her job is research on gaming. Where do I get that job? I think I'd rather do that but that I did in 30 years in law enforcement. No, I actually had a good time in law enforcement too. But it's just great that we have experts like this around the world, but especially here in Canada. And for those of you who are watching right now, don't forget, we've dedicated a whole chapter in our web book. It's free. It costs you nothing. It's called Parenting in an Online World. There's a whole chapter in that book. You just go to our website. You can download it for free. And you know what? Dr. Kowert, I got her mentioned in that chapter several times. In fact, I actually have one of her YouTube videos that are linked in there, so you can actually watch it with her. It's just amazing. I just love her work, and I love the fact that she's my, my Sarah Connor. I just love that fact about her. So, on behalf of the entire White Hatter team, I want to thank you all for attending this week's Thinkable Thursday, and I look forward to talking about another topic next time. So, from everybody here at the White Hat Virtual Studio, thank you, and have a great week. Bye, everybody.